Hi, Cheryl. How are you? Welcome to Clay Talk. Hi. Hi, Lynn. How are you? Today we're going to be discussing molds and using molds with paper clay and Delight Clay. I will just hold on for a few more minutes to see if anybody else joins and then we'll get started. I have a whole host of molds here that I've collected over the years. Some of them I remember the brand names, some of them I don't. I'm going to go through them all with you and also do a demonstration on using the molds both with paper clay, with the Creative Paperclay, and also with the Delight Clay. Great. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started on using molds in paper clay, with paper clay rather. I have a few things here that I have made using Creative Paperclay or Delight Clay, and I have used them in mixed media pieces. The cute little starfish, those were from a mold with Creative Paperclay. It's a series of them actually. This one is a little turtle. You can see how it picks up the detail very nicely. And this one is a seahorse. All of these were from, well, actually these two were from silicone molds. And this one is the starfish, I think actually. This one is actually from a plastic mold. So as you can see, you can use them in mixed media pieces. This is what I used. I do believe this is a starfish one right here. It's just actually a plastic mold. It came with one of my kids' sets, you know, those craft kits that you buy, and it comes with plaster and molds, and you make the little things. That's the starfish mold I used right there. So don't throw away those little kids kits. I mean, they do have their uses, their shells and all sorts of things depending on which one you get. And they're very inexpensive. So they're a great option if you don't want to go spending a lot of money on molds. And these are also plastic but more flexible. This is a polymer clay mold, Mache's it's called, push molds. They're marketed for polymer clay, but you could use them with paper clay also, and Delight Clay. As you can see, this is another under the sea one with shells and fish and yeah, starfish. And this one I used recently in a project that I have on the blog, just making some seashells, which I plan on using in another project. Let's just put those out the way so you can see these. So these are all made, these are made from Delight Clay. They're very light. As you can see, they pick up the detail very well that I just showed you. This one here by Mache's, and with Delight Clay. The detail is amazing that it picks up. You can see that in these little conchs. They're really, it's really amazing. The light clay I particularly like for the molds because they tend to be very light, and also it's a bit flexible even when it's dry. Like this is a medallion I made using a Prima mold, which is all, these are really good quality molds. They're Prima. They feel like a type of silicone, but they're not that soft. but the detail that comes out of them is very amazing. And they're great for stuff like this. This is from this mold set, and I decorated it with some bronze paint, as you can see, and added it to this sculpture. What's great about the Delight Clay that I mentioned before is that it actually gives just a little. I mean, it's not gonna like bend in half, but it's just ever so slightly flexible. And that then allows you to get it on a round surface like this bottle, and it sticks nicely, and you don't have any of the gaps right here showing through, and it holds quite nicely with like a heavy gel. And so that's definitely a good use when you're doing these mixed media pieces. Like I said, this is the Prima mold. It's medallions. They have all sorts. I have another one here. I don't have anything right now that I've used it on, but this is another great one that you can use for borders and stuff, or accents on a piece. You go on Amazon and have a look around, or I'm sure if you go to Michael's or your local craft store, you'll definitely be able to find some great molds for decorative pieces. Another type of mold that I use is, this is a fondant mold or gum paste mold. It's made for cake decorating. It's made of silicone, and it takes detail quite amazing. I think it's this one here. If you can see this crab, it's made from a Creative Paperclay actually, and it's made with this mold here. The details, even the little legs, everything comes out quite nicely when you use it. And let me see if I have one in here. I have a whole basket of molds here that aren't painted yet. So this is how the mold comes out when it comes out of the mold, the clay. It has great detail. All the little legs are there. Nothing breaks off, even though it's thin. So it's very strong. So I'm bending it quite hard now, and it doesn't break. So the Creative Paperclay holds up fantastic, even then it's thin like this. And the details are just amazing. So that's the first, these are called First Impressions mold. I got them on, I've had them for years. I got them off of Amazon. I'm sure other places have them. And they have all cute little things like fairies and babies and mermaids and stuff. But it's really geared towards, like I said, cake decorating. You probably have nice flowers and stuff, I'd imagine. But they're great with clay also. Another type of mold that I have are more polymer clay molds again. These are from Mache. I've had these for years as well. And these actually make fantastic molds with the Creative Paperclay and the Delight Clay. I'll demonstrate how I use these in just a minute. Here are some more First Impression molds, just to give you an idea. See, we have flowers, and that looks like a orchid, and this is a fairy. I don't know if I have a fairy in here. I think I have one that the hand broke, but let me look. Oh, here we go. Here's a fairy. So this is the type of thing that you can get out of these molds. The detail's amazing. Once again, it's dried rock hard. I'm pressing it, and it's not breaking. So these are pretty good. When you take the, one thing I want to mention is sometimes, you know, you put the clay in the mold and it kind of goes over the edges here. Don't worry about that when it's dry. You can easily just use a nail file, an emery board, and just sand off those edges. See, it just comes right down nice and smooth. And it gets rid of all of those uneven edges. If it's a lot, you can even take a pair of scissors and just snip it right off, just like that, and then just smooth the edge. And then it's just ready to be painted. Give it a coat of gesso if you don't want the paint to be absorbed. I mean, if you're using watercolor and you want the watercolor effect, then you can just paint it like this. But if you're using acrylic, I'd recommend giving it a coat of gesso first and then painting it. These are some more medallions that I got out of that mold that I showed you earlier, the Prima mold. And once again, just like these were made with Delight Clay, not Creative Paper Clay. And once again, you know, you have the rough edges, that's not a problem. You just sand them like that with your emery board, and they come back nice and smooth. It's very, very easy to work with. I'm going to show you quickly how I actually make the molds, use the molds rather. Of course, you know, some people make their own molds. You can buy those silicone kits on, you know, Dick Blick, Amazon, Mr. Art, Michaels and stuff, and make your own molds. There's also a way, I haven't tried it, but I think there might be a blog post on Creative Paperclay. If not, there definitely is YouTube videos where they use silicone in soapy water, like the actual silicone that you'd use at your home to seal glass or something. You can actually make your own molds with that. So let me show you quickly how we use the clay in the molds. I have both Delight Clay and Creative Paper Clay with me. I will demonstrate both of them. I'm going to start with the Delight Clay. I'm going to start with the Delight Clay. As I said, I'll try to talk a little bit louder. I see that you said you can barely hear me, Cheryl. I'll talk a little louder for you, and hopefully that will help. So what you do is you just condition your clay as usual, just to get rid of any little lines or anything in it. And a great idea, just to prevent your clay sticking in the molds, is to either use baby powder, which is very easy, to just sprinkle some in like that, and then you just, you know, brush it around. Or if you don't have baby powder, good old cornstarch. So I keep some cornstarch in a little jar, and I'm going to use this mold. So what I do is I just dip that in there and just dust my molds like that. This just helps prevent sticking. And then we're ready to add our clay. So I just want to show you how much detail the Creative, this is Delight Clay rather, picks up. So I'm just going to give it a little kneading. And then I'm going to press it in the mold, just like that. Take any excess off. Like I said, I'm not too bothered usually about too much of the excess, because I'll just trim it when it's dry. Now it's a good idea to leave them in there for a minute, you know, a few minutes rather, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and let them dry a bit. But for the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to pop it right out. And as you can see, you immediately get, my mold is actually dirty, that's why those little marks are there. But you immediately get the little head out. You pop it straight out of there, and you leave this to dry. It's a great way for making embellishments. If you, you know, you're into mixed media or even jewelry, you could easily use this and put a little hole through there and make a fantastic pendant. They have some smaller ones here as well. Let me show you the smaller one. Could make some earrings to match if you like, or just cute things to go on, you know, scrapbook pages. You mixed media pieces. Look at that. I don't know if you can see that clearly, but it's really cute, really tiny. The detail is amazing. And it's as simple as that. You pop them right out and you put them to dry. Delight Clay, I wouldn't recommend drying Delight Clay in the oven. It tends to bubble up a bit. I guess it's kind of like baking a marshmallow and it popping out from the inside. But the Creative Paperclay, you can actually bake in an oven at low temperature, like around 200 degrees, and it will set quicker. See how easy that is to get the images out with the Delight Clay. I'm also going to show you with the Creative Paperclay. Let me just grab some of that. If you have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate to ask. As before, I'm just conditioning the Creative Paperclay. And I'm going to show you how the plastic molds work just as well as the silicone molds. So I just get enough and break off, press it in the mold like that. If you want, you can take off the excess around the edges. It's going to be very hard to get it perfect at this point. So, and then you can pop it right out like that. And there you have it, a beautiful shell. When it's dry, like I said, you just use a nail file, or if you want sandpaper, that's fine as well. And you just clean up the edges. Remember, when you're sanding Creative Paperclay and Delight Clay, though, you don't want to use a very hard sandpaper, a very rough one, because remember, the base is paper, so it will tear right through it very quickly. I recommend like 220 grit, a nice smoothing sandpaper, like what you'd use for finishing if you were sanding wood. I'm going to show you again with this kid mold, the one that came in the kitty set, so you can see how that can work as well. So let me just grab some my baby powder. I'm going to do this starfish here. And just place it in the mold. It's kind of flimsy because it's a little kid mold, so I'm just supporting it underneath as well as I push the clay. And you can even turn it the other way and see if it's fully in or not. And then you can just push it, pop it right out. Actually comes out better when you let it dry a bit, but because I'm not allowing it to dry, it's kind of hard. But this is the kid's mold. You get the basic shape there. You wouldn't have had this little bend in the middle here had you let it dry. But it works fine. You just have to have patience with the kitty mold. So that's basically it. That's all there is to it for using molds. You can use them, like I said, on canvases, on mixed media projects like this bottle. You could use them for jewelry. There are many options that you can use them for. Decorative pieces, scrapbooking, cards, a cute little, if you had like a gingerbread man mold, that would go so cute in the middle of a Christmas card or on a tag. We have some great tutorials, actually. I was looking at the blog today, creativepaperclay.blogspot.com, and there are some great tutorials I saw. There's like a cute little pumpkin garland using a mold. Really cute. You should have a look at, if you just put in molds, silicone molds in the search bar and search, you'll find some amazing tutorials. The pumpkin garland is quite applicable considering it's October and Halloween's around the corner, and it would be a great project that you could definitely do for Halloween. There are also other ones with picture frames where they use the pieces that they've made with the molds to decorate picture frames. some great tutorials there. Lots of bottles. There was a lady on the design team, Jen DeBell. She uses a lot of molds in her work. If you look at her work, bottles and boxes, she repurposes a lot of stuff and uses a lot of molds in her work that she's made using Creative Paperclay and Delight Clay. There's also a really, really cute one I saw with Christmas gingerbread men. They used a mold, but then they actually decorated it when it was dry as if it was like a frosted cookie. And it looks really, really yummy, actually. Quite cute. So have a look on the blog. You have lots and lots of great ideas there. That's creativepaperclay.blogspot.com. So there really is nothing to it. You need baby powder or cornstarch, a little brush to dust it around, and then you just knead your clay and place it in the mold. Nothing more to it. Let me just show you this little seahorse so you can see how nice. I don't remember. I had this mold for a long time. I don't remember where I got this one from. But there you go. Comes out immediately. The silicone molds work particularly well, and they capture the detail well, and all the texture shows up nicely. And that's with Creative Paperclay, with Delight Clay. Definitely works. Also, the only difference really is that the Delight Clay is lighter and is a bit flexible. So there we go. Look at that seahorse. Just like that. It's a great way to save money, actually, because when you buy embellishments in the craft stores, it actually adds up very, very fast. So I definitely recommend. That's how I actually got into having these molds, is that I like to do mixed media projects, and I like embellishments. But the truth is, you know, a pack of embellishments is a few dollars, and, you know, it adds up very fast. So I had to find a cheaper way to make my own embellishments, and silicone molds definitely are the answer for me. As I said, you don't even have to buy them. You can make your own. So that's it. Are there any more questions about the molds or using the clay in the molds? One thing I'd mention is that you can use anything really, paint or whatever, to decorate them just as you would a sculpture. This was actually done where I colored the clay before I used it in the mold. These flowers, I'd use it on a project. And then this is Delight Clay. Then I put it in the mold and took it out and then just highlighted it with some chalk pastels. So you can pre-color the clay as well before putting it in the mold. Here's another one, pre-colored as well. All of these little flowers were pre-colored before putting them in the mold. Let me see. Any more questions? Ah, I see Cheryl one. Is that Cheryl one? A free package of Delight. That's fantastic. I love working in Delight Clay as well. It's a nice texture. It's great for making things with molds, and also any sculpture that you need to be light because you're adding it to something, or you're making jewelry, or the Delight Clay is fantastic for that. Any more questions before we leave? Okay, well, next month, Glorianne is going to be doing the show for me because I cannot be in at that time. And she's going to be sharing with you tips to create one-of-a-kind jewelry with Creative Paperclay. That should be exciting. She does a lot of jewelry work with clay. She's also on the design team. So be sure to mark your calendars for that. You don't want to miss out on that show. Paper clay is very diverse, and Delight Clay, it's not just for sculpting, you know, mixed media, jewelry, you name it. You can use it with that. Are there any more questions? And if you have any ideas actually that you want me to discuss with you on Clay Talk, you can let us know. Just leave a comment if there's, you know, anything in particular you're curious about. I'll gladly do a show on it. All right, well, if there are no more questions, then you have a good evening and thank you for joining us. And remember, the first Thursday of every month at 8 p.m. Eastern, we have Clay Talk Live. And also you can always win a package of clay. So make sure, but you have to be watching the live show to win the clay. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next month.